To be an aristocrat was both a legal and hereditary privilege. This was common within aristocracies throughout Europe. Besides these two reasons, aristocracies differed markedly from country to country. In 18th century Europe, all of these aristocracies began to attempt to gain back some of their lost power. The smallest, wealthiest, and most socially responsible aristocracy throughout the 18th century was in England. It consisted of about 400 families. This aristocracy invested wealth in commerce, canals, urban real estate, and mines, and controlled much of the economy. Most families controlled the majority of the House of Commons, and in each family, the eldest male member sat in the House of Lords. The nobles owned about 1/4 of all the land in the country, and their estates ranged from a few thousand to 500,000 acres, for which they received rents. The aristocracy demanded society and politics of the English counties. French nobility differed greatly from that of the British. There were two main branches, nobles of the robe and nobles of the sword. Nobles of the robe were part of France's old regime and gained their positions and ranks through family and from holding judicial and governmental offices. On the other hand, nobles of the sword gained their power through military service. They also gave military service in exchange for feudal land estates. The two groups often fought because nobles of the robe thought of themselves to be superior to nobles of the sword because they were born into the aristocracy, rather than gaining power through service. The French nobles were also divided between those who held office at Versailles and those who did not. French aristocrats were very set apart from the rest of society due to origin, wealth, rank, and hereditary privileges like not paying taxes. Nobles had to pay some taxes, but not most of them. Eastern European nobility was more complicated and repressive than the rest of Europe, and also stressed military tradition within the aristocracy itself. In Russia, Peter the Great linked noble power and state service through the table of ranks, which exempted the highest nobles from compulsory service. In Poland, nobles were exempt from taxes until 1741 and until 1748 had absolute control over their serfs. Although they were exempt from taxes, most of the Polish nobility were relatively poor. In Austria and Hungary, the nobility held stronger power in judicial decisions, especially when it came to peasants through their manor court. Those nobles also had various exemptions from taxation. In Prussia, after the accession of Frederick the Great in 1740, Junker nobles gained power because Frederick needed their support throughout his wars. Therefore, he gave them positions in office, giving them a false sense of power. In Russia, the nobility attempted to resurge by pushing the drafting of the Charter of Nobility, which defined rights, freedoms, and privileges of the Russian nobles. It recognized the corps of each nobles in each province as a legal corporate body. This was the aristocrats' reaction to the growing power of the monarchies. It served to attempt to stop the centralized growing power of the monarchies and to secure the rights of the nobility. Catherine the Great created the Charter of Nobility in exchange for the assurance that the nobility served the state voluntarily instead of opposing the crown. Even though the aristocracies didn't have a significant success or defeat moment, they tried as hard as they could to keep their power and influence throughout Europe. All nobilities tried to preserve their exclusion title by making it more difficult to become a noble, and made sure that all upper positions in the military, the government, and the church were reserved for nobles only. They fought to keep their financial advantage by fighting to keep tax exemptions and abuse serf labor. Centralizing the monarchy would threaten the power of the nobility because they would be losing their power in offices. Yet nobles kept their influence in the government by having control over judiciary, courts, and parliament.